Bonjour et bienvenue à notre rendez-vous quotidien pour la presse en ligne et en direct sur Europe by Satellite. Nous sommes le lundi 19 juillet. Donc, on commence avec l'agenda de le collège. En vue de la fête nationale de la Belgique, la réunion des collèges de cette semaine aura lieu le mardi et pas mercredi. Néanmoins, la réunion préparatoire des chefs de cabinet est toujours en cours et donc nous pouvons annoncer l'agenda et l'événement de presse de demain plus tard d'aujourd'hui. Vous allez recevoir un email avec les informations nécessaires. Je voudrais inviter Sonia à prendre la parole pour deux annonces sur la culture européenne et sur nos alliances sur des secteurs stratégiques pour l'Union européenne. Sonia.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. The Commission is officially launching today two new industrial alliances, an alliance for processors and semiconductor technologies and an alliance for industrial data, edge and cloud. Both alliances will bring together businesses, member states representatives, academia, users, as well as research and technology organizations to help achieve key EU policy objectives in macroelectronics and strengthen Europe's industrial position in the global cloud and edge computing market. First, the Alliance for Processors and Semiconductor Technologies aims to establish the design and manufacturing capacity required to produce the next generation of trusted processors and electronic components. It will help also meet the objective set in our Digital Decade communication to reach at least 20% of world production in value in cutting-edge and sustainable semiconductors in Europe by 2030. The Alliance for Industrial Data, Edge and Cloud will foster the emergence of disruptive cloud and edge technologies that are highly secure, energy and resource efficient, and fully interoperable, fostering trust for cloud users across all sectors. Both alliances were announced in the Industrial Strategy Update published in May this year. A press release is available for more information on these new industrial alliances. Et comme Arianna mentionnait, on a aussi une bonne nouvelle qui nous vient du Cannes, en France, mais avec des accents européens. 5 films supportés par le programme Média de l'Union européenne qui vise à encourager le développement du secteur de l'industrie audiovisuelle européenne ont reçu des prix lors de la 47e édition du Festival de Cannes ce week-end. Parmi eux, Titan de Julia Ducournau a été mise à l'honneur en recevant la prestigieuse Palme d'Or. Les 5 films font partie des 17 productions supportées à l'auteur de 2,1 millions d'euros par l'Union européenne qui étaient en compétition cette année. La campagne 30 ans du programme Média qui est en cours met ces productions en avant et célèbre le soutien continu de l'Union européenne à l'industrie audiovisuelle au cours des 3 dernières décennies, en soulignant le travail de l'industrie, devant et derrière la caméra, et l'impact réel du soutien de l'Union européenne dans le secteur. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Sonia, for these very happy news from Cannes and for the information on the Industrial Alliance. Then, concerning today's council meetings, Commissioner Stella Kyriakides and Commissioner Janusz Wojciechowski represented the Commission this morning in the Agriculture and Fisheries meeting at the Council. Ministers will be asked to approve the Council's conclusions on the EU's Organic Action Plan in line with the Farm and Fork strategy presented last year in 2020. The Commission will brief ministers about trade issues related to the agricultural markets, as well as about the European Citizens' Initiative and the cage age. Lastly, the Slovenian delegation will present the work program for its presidency term. A press conference with Commissioner Wojciechowski will be held at around 3:55 p.m. And at 7:20 this evening, there will be a press conference with Commissioner Kyriakides. Also today, an informal meeting of research ministers is taking place in Brdo, Slovenia. Commissioner Maria Gabriel is taking place on behalf of the Commission. The ministers will discuss mainly the reform of the European research area and a global approach to research and innovation. A press conference should start at around 12:45, so in a couple of minutes, at which Commissioner Gabriel will participate. And with this, we are now ready to take your questions, both from the press room and online. I see that Lily has her hand raised. Lily.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
Yes, hi. Great, thank you. We just heard Commission President von der Leyen saying that if information about how spyware was used against journalists and others were to be verified, that would be unacceptable to her. So my first question is, following reports that spyware was used to break into the phones of Hungarian journalists, lawyers, and others, will the Commission be launching its own investigation in order to verify this? Are there any legal steps or infringement proceedings that we can expect? And finally, I was wondering if you could comment on the fact that today the news, or rather the reports about the use of this spyware are widely censored in Hungary, including in state media. So dozens and dozens of outlets are simply not reporting on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. Christian has already joined me on the podium. Christian, go ahead, please.
Thanks, Arianna. Yes, hi, Lily. Well, we are of course aware of the media reports regarding spyware being used by some governments around the world. It goes without saying that any such spying on media, if true, is completely unacceptable. Lily, you mentioned yourself that the President already herself found very clear words just a few moments ago at the press conference in the Czech Republic, also making clear our position on this. Media should be able to work freely, independently, and without fear everywhere in the European Union and beyond, of course. This lies at the heart of media freedom and democracy. Member States' authorities are under an obligation to oversee and control their services when we are speaking about national security, to ensure full respect of human rights and privacy rights. So, as to your concrete question, whether there would be a Commission investigation, as you know, first of all, national security, as I just mentioned, is of course a matter where Member States have the obligation to ensure compliance with the rules, with full respect of human rights and privacy rights. And when it comes to the enforcement of, for example, privacy rights in the European Union, this is of course a matter for the independent data protection authorities. Having said that, of course, we, as you have seen, we follow this very closely, and we will for sure continue to follow this issue.
Thank you very much, Christian. I would ask to keep your hand raised only if the question relates to the same topic. So I see a question from the press room. I believe it's on the same topic. Thanks.
Thank you, Arianna. I'm Katalin Halmai, Hungarian journalist, and yes, I have a follow-up question. Minister of Justice, Hungarian Minister of Justice Judit Varga meets today with Dubravka Suica, commissioner who is in charge of the conference on the future of Europe. I do not know the schedule. I don't know whether it has already taken place or they will meet in the coming hours. But my question is whether the commissioner would like to raise this issue in her meeting with the Hungarian Justice Minister. Thank you.
So, thank you very much. On the precise schedule, I'm afraid I will have to check. We usually give the day. We don't specify the time. I unfortunately cannot prejudge what has been said on what will be said between the two leaders. We will see if it's possible to have a readout. However, I think Christian expressed very clearly the position we have and how we intend to follow the matter more broadly than the specific case you're asking about. Other questions on the topic? Patrizia Antonini has her hand raised. I believe it's on this.
Hi, Arianna. No, it's about the recovery plan and the day of pre-financing. So if you want to come back to me later, okay, thank you.
Grazie, Patrizia. Thank you. If you can raise your hand again at a later stage. For now, we are on this topic and we will stay on it. Oliver.
Hi. Yeah, sorry, I have to follow up on this. You basically rely on the Hungarian Data Protection Authority to look into this. So my question is, does the European Commission consider the Hungarian Data Protection Authority politically independent enough to properly inquire in this matter? And since we are talking about possible infringements of European law, because if the Hungarian the Hungarian government did all this, it's a clear breach of I don't know how many laws, and even President von der Leyen said herself, it goes, quote, against all the rules. So if you're not happy with the inquiry of the Hungarian Data Protection Authority, are you willing to start infringement procedures yourself? It was Lily's question and it is not answered. And given the urgency of this matter, what is your time schedule for this? When do you intend to, get active? Thank you.
Thank you, Oliver. Look, I think we've been very clear on this matter. The President herself has been very clear. Let's also not forget, that we're talking about reports of a thorough investigation, which just became public a few hours ago, I think. So give us also a little bit of time to look into these issues from the different angles. This is what we're doing still now, and then we will see whether there is more follow-up from the side of the Commission possible. But what is clear is that such measures taken against media, if true, are simply and completely unacceptable.
Thank you, Christian, for the clear reply. Alexander.
Hi, thanks. I just wanted to follow up on what Oliver asked, and the Hungarian Data Protection Authority has been in severe difficulties for a longer time, and already in the pandemic, Hungary said they would suspend enforcement of some data protection rules. So I think it is fair to say there has been a crisis of data protection enforcement in Hungary for a longer while. The information cited in the Guardian story on the Pegasus project says that last year the Hungarian Justice Minister approved 1,285 surveillance requests, and members of civil society in Hungary say that oversight over intelligence use of surveillance is basically non-existent. So in the wider context of what the European Commission has been saying about the rule of law in Hungary, do you think that there is anything more specific you could say about the situation of law enforcement of respective European rules, and specifically today on this?
Thank you, Alex, for the question. Well, I think what I can say regarding Hungary is to remind of our position and our concerns that we have voiced regarding media freedom and pluralism. You will remember them from the last Rule of Law report, and I'm sure you will also be able to read about this issue again in the next edition of the Rule of Law report, which is supposed to be public very soon. Let me also remind that we recently launched an infringement procedure against Hungary on the case of Club Radio. And of course, the situation of media will be a crucial part also of the next rule of law report. Regarding independence of data protection authorities, this is of course something that is very important to us and that we follow in all our member states. You will remember that we have only recently actually launched one infringement in the case of the Belgian Data Protection Authority, and of course we are overall following this in our member states and are always ready to make sure that the GDPR-related rules are being applied by the member states. But again, the enforcement and the monitoring on individual cases is, of course, in the first place in the hands of the member states.
Thank you, Christian. I see no other hands raised on this topic, so we can now change subject. Do raise your hand if you would like to ask about another matter. Patrizia, go ahead. I think we can now take your question on the RRF.
Thank you, Arianna. I'm not switching on my camera today, but you can recognize my voice probably. I would like to know when is more or less due the pre-financing of the recovery plan for Italy. My understanding is that it should be for next week. Can you confirm this and maybe give me a more precise, idea of when this is going to be? If not a date, that's the best. That would be the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrizia. I would ask my colleagues to come on the podium or connect. Might be Verle or Stefan replacing Balas, depending on the perspective. Stefan, you want to start and Verle integrates? Or
as you wish, as you wish.
I see Verle very convinced of the podium, so I think Verle can start and then we can see if Stefan integrates. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you very much for your question. So indeed, for the payment of the pre-financing of 13% of the maximum allocation under the RRF to be disbursed, the financing agreements between the member states for which the Council has already green-lighted the Recovery and Resilience Plan needs to be finalized. And so from the Commission side, we have obviously already almost finalized these documents, but it very much depends now on the national procedures on the member states side in terms of how fast they will be ready to deliver these and sign these agreements in line with their national procedures. So we cannot comment on the specific date by which the Italian financing agreement will be signed, but we can say that obviously from the Commission side we are working towards, we want to make sure that these agreements are signed as fast as possible. And hopefully still by the end of July we will start dispersing the 13% of pre-financing for those countries for which the Council has already green-lighted the Recovery and Resilience Plan. And maybe Stefan wants to...
Thank you very much, Verle. I think the reply was very clear. If all goes well with the signature of the agreements, which of course we hope, we can expect indeed the payments by late July, if possible, and then the disbursements will continue throughout August. Stefan, I think we said everything possible. Verle already added all elements, but of course do feel free to intervene if you have additional points to make.
Nothing to intervene. Verle did a very good job. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you, Stefan. I see a number of hands raised. Is it on the same topic? If it is, keep your hand raised. Otherwise, I would ask you to wait for a moment. Patrizia, I think you have a follow-up.
Yes, I would like to understand when the agreement was sent to Italy to be signed, if possible.
Hello, Patrizia. We cannot comment on that, I'm afraid.
Thank you, Verle. I think we have no other questions on this topic, so feel free to raise your hands on different matters. Don't see questions in the press room, so I'll go still online. Jennifer.
Thank you. You can hear me, I hope?
Yes, hi.
It's a question for Nabila. I wanted to ask about the statement that was issued shortly before the midday briefing. First of all, can I get some more details about the hacking coming from China? Can you say how long this has been going on for? When did you realize and who realized which sort of party, and how did the whole process of discovering this work? Which member states have been affected? Which EU institutions? And also the statement talks about significant economic loss. Can you put a figure on that? Thank you.
Well, hi, thanks Jennifer for your question, but I'm afraid I'm going to disappoint you. As you see, we have issued the declaration. The increase in malicious cyber activities are unacceptable. They cause significant harm to our security, democracy, economy, and society at large. And today what we're doing is we're exposing the malicious cyber activities that have caused significant harm to the EU and the member states. I'm afraid when it comes to the detailed questions that you are asking, we cannot really answer because this would undermine security. So I will stop here, and I will refer you to the declaration that we have published earlier.
Do you have questions on the same topic? I will then ask if there are other foreign affairs questions, but on this specific angle. I see Jennifer has a follow-up.
Thank you. As a follow-up, I mean, last year the EU adopted sanctions against for following cyber attacks from Russia and China. Is that something that you would be looking at this time? Will there be any proposal for sanctions in response to this?
As you know, new listings under the horizontal EU autonomous cyber sanctions regimes are for the Council to decide, and any decisions on these listings require unanimity among the EU member states. So as regards to further listings, we usually do not comment.
Thank you, Nabila. I see a number of hands raised still on this specific matter of foreign affairs. Otherwise, I would ask you to unraise your hand. We will get to all questions. Lawrence.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Nabila, a couple of follow-ups on what Jennifer asked here. Do we have any information that the Chinese government, Chinese officials were involved? There's obviously a listing of a number of hacking groups, but there's no clear indication whether the government is involved. Secondly, I mean, the High Rep himself can propose sanctions. He's put out a statement listing, a pretty significant series of cyber attacks. So is the EES prepared to put on the table some retaliation over this under the cyber sanctions? You can't speak for the member states, but you can speak for the EES, and he does have the power to do that. And I'm not quite sure why giving some indication of what the statement calls a significant economic impact would undermine anyone's national security. Can we ask you, if you don't have this now, to go back and find out whether there is some estimate of what the impact is? Thank you.
On the estimate of what the impact is, I can propose that I can go back and check, but I'm not sure I can give you this answer right now, that's for sure. On whether the HRVP will propose or not, this is not, as I said, this is something that for the moment we're not going to comment on additional listings. You know how the procedures are, you know that it happens in the Council, and you know that it needs unanimity. As for, I'm not sure about the first question that you asked, Lawrence, if you can repeat it. I'm sorry, I missed it.
It was whether there's any indication that the Chinese government were involved.
Well, I mean, as stated in the declaration, we expose the malicious cyber activities that we assess that have been undertaken from the territory of China. And that's why we reiterate our call to China to take action against malicious cyber activities stemming from its territory. I cannot tell you something additional to what was said in the statement.
Thank you, Nabila, for the answers. I think all questions on this specific topic have been asked, so I'll open the floor to other foreign affairs related matters. I see that there are a couple of questions on Libya, so I'll give the floor first to Nureddin and then to Oliver for his Libya question. So Nureddin.
Oui, bonjour. I have a question on Libya. Nabila, do the European Union plan a CSDP mission in Libya? It seems there is some information leaked about that. Are you preparing a CSDP mission in Libya? Thank you.
As you know, Nureddin, we do not comment on leaked reports. What I can say is that as far as I know, there are no discussion at the moment about an EU military mission in Libya. The EU is committed to continue supporting Libya's return to peace and stability, including through its civilian mission, EUBAM Libya, and its military operation in the Mediterranean, EUNAVFOR Med Irini.
Thank you very much, Nabila. I understand Oliver has a question always on Libya, so Oliver, go ahead.
Yes, hi, sorry. It's quite a busy news day today. Nabila, the document you don't want to comment on, which was leaked and which our colleagues from the EU Observer report about, actually sketches out, which is apparently the thinking in the External Action Service about the situation in Libya and what the EU should do. So without commenting on this document, can you give us an idea of what, according to Mr. Borrell's intelligence and his advisors' intelligence, the EU should do to stop the civil war and carnage in Libya and get all the foreign actors, the Emirates, the Turks, the I don't know who else, out of the country, make sure the country actually can live according to, you know, the UN resolutions and so forth and so forth. Thank you.
Oliver, just to remind you that Nabila does not want to comment on the document which is leaked, because it's our usual practice not to comment on leaked documents, and so it's nothing exceptional. I don't know if Nabila has anything to add with respect to what she has already said. Of course, Nabila, go ahead.
No, I mean, thanks a lot, Oliver, for your question. And again, I know that, as you know, I'm not going to leak on the document itself, but what I can do is, what I can tell you is I refer you to the HRVP speech at the Berlin conference in June, where he basically goes back and he says that there is a constructive and inclusive dialogue that is very important, that needs to be paid off, that full sovereignty to reunification of its institution and stable future for Libya now can look possible, but we are at a critical juncture, and it is very timely opportunity to look ahead and see how we can help Libya to consolidate this significant progress that there was. It is very important to follow up and see what are the next steps with the elections that are upcoming. We also want to see that there is a full implementation of a ceasefire agreement, which includes the quick withdrawal of all foreign forces and mercenaries. But apart from this, I mean, I can go on and go on about Libya, but I'm not sure that's good for the midday today.
Thank you, Nabila. Indeed, I think all has been said that was possible on this matter. However, I see Lawrence has a hand raised. Go ahead, and then we'll see if it's on the same topic, if we have anything further to add. Let's see. Lawrence.
Apologies, I'm going to go back to the China issue unless someone else has a Libya-related question.
Go ahead. I don't have any other hand raised.
Nabila, I'm sorry to insist, and I realise you've only got the information that you've been given. The UK, in its statement, makes it absolutely clear that they believe that the actors involved in these cyber attacks were, to quote them, so almost certain that the Microsoft Exchange compromise was initiated and exploited by a Chinese state-backed threat actor. Now, I know that these statements are being made and have been coordinated to some degree, at least between the EU and the UK, because the statements say that. It's amazing to me that the UK is saying that these are initiated or by the Chinese government, and the EU is not saying that. I don't understand that discrepancy. Are we just softballing the fact that we believe the Chinese government is involved?
What I can tell you, Lawrence, going back to the previous subject, is that attribution is a sovereign political decision made on a case-by-case basis, which can, when needed, be coordinated at the EU level. Our main aim is to prevent conflicts, encourage cooperation, and influence towards responsible behavior in cyberspace in view of an open, stable, and secure cyberspace.
Thank you, Nabila. I do not see other questions relating to foreign affairs. If you have a question on foreign affairs, it's the moment to raise your hand. Joe.
Thank you. It's on foreign affairs, but not the kind of foreign affairs that we've been talking about with China and so on, Iran and India or whatever. So Maros Sefcovic is holding talks with Jeffrey Donaldson, the new DUP leader, today. I'm wondering if you have a readout from that meeting from Dan, please, or whoever's covering him if he's already on holiday. So.
Thank you. So indeed not for Nabila. Thank you, Nabila. It's actually for me. I'm covering for Dan. So indeed, there has been a virtual meeting, part of the Vice President's outreach to Northern Ireland political leaders, stakeholders, and civil society. As Mr. Donaldson has been recently elected to lead the DUP, it is only natural to establish a channel of communication and discuss implementation of the protocol on Ireland and Northern Ireland. Let me recall that in recent weeks, the Vice President has spoken to all leaders of political parties forming the Northern Ireland Executive. Thank you very much. Are there other questions? Joe, you have a follow-up.
Not a follow-up, a separate question.
Go ahead. Thanks. Go ahead.
Okay. So we've seen Commissioner Shinas's letter about the Olympic Games and having the EU flag flown at the opening ceremony. Does this mean the Commission believes that the IOC should allow a single European Union team? And does the Commission believe that the competing EU states should have their medal tallies put together so they actually have a chance of winning the overall competition? Thank you.
So I think you're referring to the letter that Vice President Skinas has signed together with Prime Minister Janša, of course, because of the Council presidency. And the request made to the International Olympic Committee was to allow the Slovenian team to walk with both the Slovenian flag and the European flag, representing the Union and the values of sports that we, of course, support. I don't think we can go beyond what was actually in the letter, but I don't know if any of the colleagues, Sonia perhaps, has anything to add to this. Otherwise, I think we can leave it to this.
Yes, hello. Nothing more to add. Indeed, the letter is explicit and it clarifies the request that the Vice President and also the Prime Minister of Slovenia have made, so nothing further to add. And no further requests regarding a common European team or additional request on behalf of the Commission or the European Union.
Thank you very much, Sonia. Are there other questions for us today on different topics? Do not see hands raised from the press room, so I'll still go online. Sarah Ann. Sarah Ann, I think your microphone has an issue. Maybe you need to change source or press and speak. Usually it's one of the two. It's a source. You might have to reconnect in order to be able to use your microphone. So while you do this, I will give the floor to Oliver, who has a question on a different matter. Oliver.
Yes, hello, hi. So from the third country, Britain, to a member state that is sadly appearing to be on its way out, Poland. The Speaker of the Polish Parliament, the Sejm, announced his willingness to this week table a bill that would in fact give the government the possibility to take control of the last, and not the last, but the biggest independent TV station, TV1. So I know the Commission usually only gets active as soon as a law is in force, but given the fact that the Polish government might here create a fait accompli, I was wondering what you make of this new development and whether you would, for example, suggest any kind of preliminary interim measures to stop this from happening. Thank you.
Oliver, allow me first of all to apologize to Christian for making him go back and forth. I will get better at this, so I will group questions next time. Christian, go ahead.
It's okay. It's not the first time that this happens. Actually, it's only the second time of the day. So, okay. Yes, Oliver, I've commented on this before. Actually, in case you haven't seen, we are indeed following this. We are aware of the new legislative proposal, changing the rules on broadcasting concessions. We need to look into the draft more closely, in more details, and we will clearly monitor these developments. We expect member states to ensure that their policies will not affect the commitment of ensuring a free, independent, and diverse media ecosystem. So we are monitoring closely the situation related to the TVN 24 channel, whose license has also not been renewed yet. Overall, we are following with growing concern the situation of media freedom and pluralism in Poland. These concerns are well known and have been documented in our 2020 Rule of Law report. And the 2021 edition will again look into the relevant aspects of media pluralism in Poland. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Are there other questions for Christian on the topics he follows in order not to make him do it a third time, if we can avoid? I do not see hands raised from the press room nor online, so thank you very much, Christian. Are there other questions for us today on other topics?
Would like to, Fabio Fantozzi, La Presse. I would like to ask you something about vaccinations, because you set a target of 70%, but refer to fully vaccinated people. I think it's very realistic. So I would like to have some updates about this, of only if you refer for people with one dose by the end of July. And in view of the spreading of the Delta variant, what can the states do in order to encourage vaccination? And one more thing, US President Joe Biden blamed Facebook and other social networks to spread fake news. So what can we do about this to encourage and increase vaccination in the UA?
Thank you, Fabio. I think we will take it in two batches of questions. We will first tackle the ones on vaccines specifically. Stefan is connected. Let me remind you that we haven't delivered the doses necessary for the 70% vaccination of the population, but Stefan can certainly provide us all updates and elements. Stefan.
Thank you very much. The first thing I would like to clarify when it comes to the different targets that we set, the main target is the one of 70% of vaccination of the adult population. We're talking about full vaccination, meaning 2 doses for those vaccines which require 2 doses, or 1 vaccine for the vaccine that requires only 1 dose. So the target is to have full vaccination of 70%. As has been announced a few days ago already, is the fact that we have already reached 50% of the adult population that has been fully vaccinated. That's very important. That is due to the fact that we've had important deliveries. The numbers of deliveries have been going increasingly well, which explains why for these full vaccination we've already reached 50%. This being said, we've always said that we believe, on the basis of the deliveries that took place, on the basis of the provisions for the deliveries that are taking place now, that a sufficient number of doses will be delivered this month in July, so that the member states have enough doses to then ensure the 70% target. And already a week ago, if I'm not mistaken, we announced that a sufficient number of doses had been delivered to ensure sufficient vaccination of 70% by the member states. But of course, this requires that the member states continue their vaccination campaigns, that they continue quickly administering the vaccines as soon as they arrive. So that is very important. In terms of the support that we give, I mean, there's all kinds of support that is being given. I can also refer to the last tour that the Commissioner Kyriakides is making in the different member states to monitor the situation, see where there's challenges and issues, and see how further the Commission can help. We are helping in terms of information campaigns, communication campaigns, by making information communication materials available. We are very much drawing the attention to the importance, obviously, of vaccination by helping member states with their information campaigns, by drawing the importance or drawing the attention of the citizens to the fact that this vaccination is very important, that it's done on the basis, it has to be done on the basis of scientific elements, scientific evidence, and that the vaccines that we have are safe and effective, because the safety and effectiveness has been assessed by the European Medicines Agency. So a lot is being done together with the member states to help them reaching this 70% target. But of course, the main work continues to be the administration of the vaccines that have been delivered. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stefan. Before passing to Fabio's second question on disinformation, I would like to see if there are other questions related to vaccines or health-related matters. Does not seem to be the case. Therefore, I would ask Sonia if she can reply to Fabio's question on disinformation.
Many thanks, Arianna. First, to start with, we don't have any specific comment on the statement of President Biden. What I can say regarding our effort to fight against disinformation is that the European Union is one of the pioneers regarding this fight, especially in the context of the coronavirus. To start with, we have already adopted an action plan to fight disinformation in 2018, which is being now implemented. In the context of the coronavirus, already last year, we have adopted a joint communication, which is fighting disinformation related to the coronavirus, but also related to the vaccination campaigns. And there are certain measures that we are taking with the objective to address 3 main issues. First, the source of the disinformation. Second, the channels that disseminate and amplify the disinformation. And third, the need to reinforce resistance to disinformation among those which are targeted, and especially young people, which are prominent users of social media. Then specifically related to the social platforms, the Commission has very important cooperation with them. This is based on the code of practice, exactly to ensure that there is a trustworthy and secure online environment where the platforms, the major platforms which have signed this code of practice, have committed to apply certain principles. It's a self-regulatory code of practice, and this is being implemented. In order to make sure that the code of practice is strengthened and also updated depending on the challenges that we are currently facing, we have adopted a guidance for the platforms in May with further details how to implement those principles. And of course, we are going to revise the code of practice as time passes and of course the different needs arise. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sonia. I do not see other questions relating to disinformation. Therefore, I would open the floor to questions on other topics. And I know that Sarah Ann would still like to ask a question. Sarah Ann, let's see if your microphone works. The issue is the mic source. I think you need to change source. I think we can hear you now. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now? Does this work?
Hi.
Yes, great. All right, hi. Sorry about that. My question is relating to the EU-Vietnam Trade Committee that happened today. There have been issues in Vietnam with arrests of people who are supposed to be part of the domestic advisory group. And I was wondering how the EU raised this issue with Vietnam and what the response was on the other side. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll take the question as I am replacing Miriam this week. Indeed, the EU is very concerned about recent reports of arrests by Vietnamese authorities of two Vietnamese civil society representatives. The EU delegation in Hanoi has requested an urgent meeting with the government of Vietnam to express these concerns, especially as these persons are reported to be involved in the establishment of a domestic advisory group in Vietnam as mandated in the EU-Vietnam trade agreement. These concerns were communicated to the ambassador of Vietnam in Brussels on Friday. Also, Executive Vice President Dombrovskis supported the EU delegation's request to get clarifications on this matter with his counterpart in today's meeting of the Trade Committee. European stakeholders have high expectations on the free and independent room devoted to civil society in monitoring the implementation of the trade agreement. And the EU called on Vietnam Trade Minister Dien at the meeting of the EU-Vietnam Trade Committee of today to ensure that Vietnam respects its commitments to establish an independent domestic advisory group. Thank you. Saran, you have a follow-up.
Yes, I do. I was wondering what sanctions could there be from the EU side if Vietnam doesn't budge on this?
If I understand correctly the question, it's what can be done if the domestic advisory group will not be established. If this is indeed the question, I can say that under the EU-Vietnam trade agreement, Vietnam is obliged to establish its own independent domestic advisory group by the end of July 2020 to monitor the implementation of the agreement. We have clearly conveyed that the lack of this advisory group on the Vietnam side is a very serious non-respect of the free trade agreement obligation and risks undermining the trust in Vietnam. This issue needs to be addressed as a matter of urgency by Vietnam, and failure to do so will require further intervention on our side. I'm afraid I cannot be more specific than this at this time. I do not see other hands raised. Do you have other questions for us today, either from the press room or online? David. David, I think you need to press on speak and it should work. We don't see any technical issue from our side. I'm afraid we have a technical problem there. I do not see, let's try it again. Otherwise, I would suggest that you contact bilaterally the spokesperson that follows the topic you wanted to ask about. Sorry, David, I don't know why it's not working. I think there are no further questions for
Hello?
us. Ah, David, go ahead.
Up on Joe's question a bit late, but there seems to be some confusion and bordering on misinformation about the European flag, and I'd like the Commission to clarify it. The flag on an azure background with 12 stars is the flag of the Council of Europe, and they encouraged other organizations to use it. And it was only 30 years later that the European communities decided to do that. So obviously there would be some confusion if certain member states a flag which incorporates a lot of other European countries which are not members of the EU, including Russia. So I'd like to get confirmation from the Commission that this is primarily the flag of the Council of Europe, and it's the European Union is only using the flag at the request of the Council of Europe, which said that it's a symbol of the Council of Europe and its efforts in European unity. Thank you.
Thank you, David. You broke up at a certain point. I think I will have to come back to you bilaterally. It relates to the Schuman Declaration, but let me get back to you with further information about the flag. The letter refers to the flag of the European Union, and I think it's clear in this sense. But to avoid any confusion, I will be very happy to check and get back to you later if we have additional elements on the flag issue. I see no further question for us today. Thank you very much for having participated to this midday press briefing, both to the ones in the press room and to the ones connected online. Thank you to the interpreters, colleagues that have made this technically possible, of course my spokescolleagues that have helped me through the briefing, and we'll see you tomorrow for the college readout. You'll get the agenda of the points later today once the meeting of the heads of cabinet is over. Thank you, have a nice day.